This final tip is going to blow your mind. Hey there, friends. Thanks for stopping by Seabird Hives and Homestead. While it may be a balmy 33 degrees and freezing mist today, we will not be doing any gardening. However, right now is the time that we need to be planning ahead for this year's garden. As all of you know, our paychecks just don't seem to stretch quite as far as they used to. And buying healthy food for our families, as well as just about everything else these days, is getting more and more expensive. Now, our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, they all went through hard times too. And one thing that they figured out to offset the cost is by gardening. While things may not be quite as straightforward these days as they were back then, there are still a lot of things that we can do similar to what they did then to offset the impact on our pocketbooks. This video is the first in a series that I have planned on how to help you have your most productive and budget-friendly garden ever this year. So come along with me as I give you 10 tips and one extra special bonus pro tip to help you save money or make money from your garden this year. So let's dig in and get our hands dirty, or really cold. Today, it'll be really cold. The first tip that I have for you today is probably the simplest and the most common sense, but it is plan to plant what you will actually eat. Don't waste your money buying plants or seeds for things that you and your family aren't even going to touch once they're on your plate. Along with planting food that your family will eat, something else that you might have never thought about before is planting a little bit extra or planting varieties that your livestock can eat. This will help offset your feed bill. Something that we always do when we're done with preserving, we'll throw all of our scraps, our tomato skins and the seeds and things like that out to our animals. But something that I am going to try to be more intentional about this year is planting things specifically for my animals to eat that will help them with their nutrition and will offset my feed bill. Some of these things might be kale, there's amaranth that you can plant, broomcorn. These are some things I'm going to try that I know my animals are absolutely going to love, and in the long run, it's going to help my pocketbook. The second tip that I have for you is consider how much space and how much light you will have in your gardening area. If you are in a small space and you are doing container gardening, consider varieties of seeds and plants that will climb rather than those that are going to be a bush type. So for instance, you're going to want to buy a pole bean instead of a bush bean, and check your cucumbers and make sure that they are a climbing variety instead of a bush variety as well. In regards to tomatoes, not everything is created equal. And while I know that tomatoes are one of the most commonly grown container plants, check the label before you buy that plant if you're going to go that route, or before you buy that seed packet. Look to see if the tomato is determinate or indeterminate. Now, what does that mean exactly? Determinate tomato plants are plants that typically grow in a more compact fashion, and they set all of their fruit at one time. Meanwhile, indeterminate tomatoes are more of a vining type tomato, and they will set fruit all through the season until you get your first frost. So if you are in a smaller area for your gardening, definitely want to check into the determinate rather than the indeterminate varieties. Different plants are going to have different sunlight requirements. So take note whether the area you're gardening in has shade, part shade, or full sun, as the plants that you choose to put in your garden should reflect that. So if you are trying to get the most out of your dollar, you need to keep in mind the space requirements and the light requirements for each variety of plant or seed that you intend to buy this year. Tip number 3 is know what varieties will grow well in your specific climate. Here in the US, we have what are called growing zones or hardiness zones. I'm going to insert the map of that right here. You could take a second and pause that and look at it if you need to, but I will also, in the description below, put the link for this map, and the website actually has an option where you can put in your specific zip code, and it will allow you to see exactly where you fall on this hardiness zone map. So why is it important to know your growing zone or your hardiness zone? Well, the answer is because this tells you your average first frost date and last frost date for every growing season. Now, given those two dates, you will be able to know how many growing days that you have during the season. And that is important when you're choosing plant varieties, not just to let you know when you can put those things in the ground without damage of frost, but also to let you know how many days you have to maturity on those plants. A lot of varieties of winter squash specifically have very long maturation dates. And so you need to make sure before you invest in plants or seeds that you're going to be able to get those plants to maturity and actually reap a harvest on them before your last frost date comes. The fourth tip that I have for you is that you need to know your soil type or texture. When we say soil type, we're actually talking about the texture of the soil that you have. So there are three basic types of soil texture. That's sandy, silty, or sometimes called loamy, and clay. And in our garden, it is very unique in that we have two sections that have very distinct soil textures in each side of the garden. This particular spot in the garden where I'm sitting right now, you can see behind me, not a lot of dirt today. It's mostly snow. This section of our garden is primarily sandy and loamy soil. Now, we know that we can plant root vegetables very well at this end of our garden. And so that is what we choose to grow here. Right behind me are 299 cloves of garlic that we planted for this year. We started planting garlic about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now. Started with about 25 cloves, and we have saved garlic back every year, and we've also bought a couple new varieties to try this year. So this is something we've learned grows very well here, and we are expanding production. As you can see, I have moved, and this section of my garden where I'm standing right now, hi chicken, is the original garden plot that we had. We put it in when we first moved here. Actually, before we lived here, we gardened here before our house was ready. So this soil, unfortunately, is very heavy clay, which is really typical for the area where we live. Now, we gardened in this spot for 2 years or 3 years before we finished the back part. You can see it kind of goes around the corner back there. That's the section I was in before. That garden section, rather, has actually very light, sandy, loamy, silty soil. So as I mentioned over there, we plant root vegetables and things over there that need loose soil. Our soil here is very heavy, and so we plant things like brassicas and leafy plants because they have shallow root systems that don't mind the heavy clay. Also, things we will plant down here that have done very well are tomatoes and squash. Clay soil is good for moisture retention, so it's not all a loss if you have clay soil and you can amend it. We have been amending this soil here over the course of several years. It's a lot better than it was. It still has a long way to go. There is no perfect soil. But we keep working at it, and we learn to work with what we're given so that we can have the most productive garden that is possible for us. Tip number 5, always start seeds yourself if you can. Seeds are so much cheaper than buying plants, and oftentimes it's a bad investment to buy plants, and I'm going to explain to you why that is. You do not have to have a greenhouse or an expensive setup to start seeds yourself. There are many times that I have started seeds in empty milk cartons that I've cut the bottoms off of, yogurt cups, cottage cheese containers, egg cartons filled with topsoil, and just cover those up with some cling wrap until they start to sprout to hold the moisture in. Check the moisture, put the cover back on until those sprout. Put them in a south-facing window once they sprout, and you're good to go. That's literally all you have to do. It's cheap or free in some instances as far as the setup goes. You have maybe the seed cost involved there, but very economical. You do not have to have a big elaborate setup to start your own seeds. One thing that you will see as far as plants is concerned, a lot of times things that you could start very easily from seed yourself and grow very, very cheaply, you're going to pay a lot of money for to buy as a started plant. And that plant is not going to be superior to what you could grow yourself. First of all, from a financial standpoint, if you buy a 6 or an 8 pack of lettuce, that's pre-started at a big box store, it's probably not going to grow very well for you, to be honest. That pack will cost you anywhere from $2 to $3 for 6 to 8 lettuce plants. That's if you can find a deal. I can get a packet of that same lettuce seed with 250 or more lettuce seeds in that packet for the same price or less. There's also some debate that plants that you buy from a big box store or a farm store, hardware, sometimes the growers will spray those plants with a retardant spray. What that means, they put a chemical on them that keeps them from growing to maturity too soon so that they have a longer shelf life. The problem with that is once you get that plant home, that chemical doesn't go away. So your plant that you brought home and you're expecting it to start taking off and growing very well, it's probably not going to do very well for you because that retardant spray, that chemical is still in its system. And I don't know that that's something I really want to be feeding my family anyway. Even if you can only start some of your garden plants from seed, it's still a smart move financially. Tip number 6, if you are a new gardener or you don't have a lot of experience, start small and easy first. If this is your first experience with gardening, start with a tomato plant or start with beans. This is your first time starting seed, I would definitely recommend starting something like lettuce first. It's very easy to start from seed and grows very well. My suggestion is to start with 2 or 3 different varieties of plants and grow from there every year as you gain the skills and the confidence that you need to grow more things successfully. If you start right out the gate trying to grow everything and you don't have the experience that you need, you're going to cost yourself not just time and resources, but money. And your goal here is to save or make money. So not a good financial decision to jump in with both feet if you don't have the skill set needed yet. Start small and work your way up as you gain confidence. Once you are more confident with your growing, you need to start learning how to save your own seed. This is one thing that will save you so much money in the long run, but there are some caveats. You can only save seed from heirloom or open pollinated plants. Now let me explain what the difference is between heirloom or open pollinated and hybrid plants. What is the difference? Heirloom plant varieties are those that grow true to seed year after year. They can be pollinated, and pollen from many different plants can enter into them, and it will not harm their genetic outcome at all. They will be true to plant, true to seed, year after year. Hybrid plants, on the other hand, are not going to produce true to seed year after year. While I'm on this rabbit hole, I want to talk to you about the difference in hybrid and bioengineered or GMO plants. A hybrid plant is a plant that has been crossbred basically with another plant of the same species to produce a certain outcome. So a lot of your tomato plants are hybrid plants. They are very heavy producers, they're very disease resistant, and breeders have intentionally crossed the genetics of 2 or more different tomatoes in this example in order to produce one that has the characteristics that they are looking for. Now, genetically modified or bioengineered plants, that is a completely different animal or plant. Anyway, that modification is done in a lab. And the scary part is the genetic material that's in those plants may not even come from a plant in the same species, and it may not even come from a plant. The genetic modifying that's done on those species is done in a laboratory, again, to get certain outcomes, but that is not the same thing as hybrid. Hybrid plants are done by breeders to get specific outcomes, and they are done like tomato to tomato species. However, with the genetically modified, they could put animal DNA in there, and they could put other things that are created in a lab in your plants. I definitely steer clear of GMO or bioengineered plants, and there has been a lot of fuss about making sure that your seeds and your plants that you buy are not genetically modified, and there's been rumblings that the public in general cannot buy genetically modified seed, and that's not entirely true, and let me explain to you how I know this. Okay, this is a catalog that I get from a local company. They deal primarily with commercial farmers. So that being said, keep that in mind. As you can see here, I'll zoom in. They do offer, you see that symbol down there at the bottom? This is Roundup Ready sweet corn. Okay, so if I chose, I do have access to this. Most of their other corn in here is simply just a hybrid. It is not the GMO Roundup Ready corn, in their defense. I actually really like this company. They are very transparent with their practices and things. One thing I will show you back here. See, they do have heritage beans. Now, when you see that number on the right, this is just their coding system. I'm not going to tell you what company it is. That's not important. I don't want you to think I'm talking negatively about them. I am not. But the writing there that's in the red with the U after it just means that that's untreated seed. So that means it has nothing sprayed on it as far as a fungicide or any kind of insecticide already sprayed on it. Some of them do. The one there that's in the blue color, see, that is pre-treated with an insecticide on it. I avoid those, obviously. But these here that do not have that blue and they have the red writing beside them, those are heritage or heirloom open pollinated seeds that you can purchase from them, which is exactly what I did. And they appealed to me because, as you can see, very large quantities. I can get a 5-pound or a 25-pound bag of seed, which I have done in the past, and split it between family members that are also gardening. And it's a huge cost savings. So when you're canning as many beans as I am, you're looking for bulk. So I always buy a few packs from other seed producers as well. But this is why this company in particular appealed to me. But just be aware that if you are getting literature from a company like this one, they do offer, as I said right there, a Roundup Ready sweet corn and things like that. I don't have a problem supporting this company. They've been very good to me. But that's kind of a fallacy that you see, that you don't even have access to GMO seed. That's not entirely true in and of itself. It is out there. It does exist. You can get your hands on it. You just need to be vigilant. Know your producer. Make sure they're above board. These guys are. They're fine. They're great. I've never had any problem with them. Just for informational purposes. There you go. So, as you can see from that catalog, I am not a commercial farmer. However, there are companies that do put catalogs and things out for the general public or backyard growers that they have access to commercial seed. So just be very careful when you are selecting seed. Like I said, typically that is disclosed. If a company is above board, they're going to disclose to you exactly what it is you're getting. Make sure you're buying a heritage or an heirloom variety in those from those catalogs from those producers. But it is out there, folks. So just be vigilant and know your producer. If you want to save seeds for next season, make sure that the seed you get at the very first is a good quality heirloom seed. Now, there are several growers that I have used in the past, or producers, I should say, that I trust. And one of those, of course, is Baker Creek. That goes without saying. They have a superior product. But if you are on a budget, their price point is a little higher. Also, High Mowing Organic Seeds. Now, they do have pretty much all organic seeds. I believe it may be all organic in their catalogs, which is awesome if that's what you're looking for. I've gotten a lot of seeds from them before. Sprouting seeds especially, those are really cool. You can grow bean sprouts, broccoli sprouts. They have all kinds of really nice blends. Tastes delicious, easy to grow. Love that. Love those products. Love that company. But again, pretty high price point if you are on a very tight budget. My all-time favorite company, shout out, I doubt he'll ever see this video, but if he does, Luke at MI Gardener. You're hands down my favorite. I'm going to be in the house in a little bit, and I will show you some of those seeds that I just purchased from MI Gardener, some of the seeds that I'll be growing this year that I'm super excited about. If you've never checked out his channel, I highly advise that you do that. He is very knowledgeable. He is a professional. I am not a professional. I am just a backyard hobby gardener and homesteader. I have learned so much from him, and I encourage you to check out his channel as well. I can link it below. That might help you. So anyway, check out his channel. It's great. We love it. This is Laura from the future. I've come in and gotten all warmed up because it's really dropping quickly out there. The temperature is really, really getting cold. Gotten myself just this little cup of tea here. Just a little cup today. And I'm going to share with you some of the things I've ordered from my gardener this year that just arrived, and I'm super excited about growing. I'm not going to share everything with you just for the sake of time, but a couple things I do want to share. 2 tomato types that we grew last year we had never done before are this Jersey Devil tomato right here, you can see, and this Boxcar Willie tomato. Okay, my expectations for these 2 specifically were blown out of the water. I had tomatoes running out my ears. I was finding things to do with tomatoes because I've never had so many tomatoes. I grew about 4 or 5 varieties overall. These 2, very prolific. Growing them again, they are amazing. Something else, this is my favorite tomato, guys. All-time favorite tomato, the big rainbow tomato. It is an indeterminate. Most of your heirlooms are actually indeterminate. Fun fact. But the taste is delicious. They're huge. They're meaty. They're low acid. They are just amazing. My all-time favorite tomato. 2 that I am excited to try this year for the first time are this orange currant tomato and this Tess Landrace currant tomato. Now these are very, very small tomatoes. We've never done these. My kids love the little cherry or currant style tomatoes. They can just pick off, pop in their mouth. They're awesome. So we're gonna try this, and I hope I'm not disappointed. I'm sure I won't be, but time will tell. Something else that we're looking forward to growing this year are some straight 8 cucumbers. Can't go wrong with the straight 8. These are good slicers. This is a pickling cucumber. I believe you call it Rhenish. I believe that's how you pronounce that. A Rhenish pickling cucumber. Here's the difference. Look at these 2. You see how one has a straight, smooth flesh and the other is kind of short and bumpy? That's how you tell the difference primarily in a pickling cucumber and a slicing cucumber. The little rough ones are typically more for pickling. One thing my family absolutely loves is beets. Unfortunately, the last 2 years, every beet that I've planted has been eaten to the ground by rabbits. This year, we're going to try it again. We're going to try these Detroit Dark Reds. I've got a couple packs of these here. I'm going to try it again, try to beat these wascally wabbits. Hopefully having the livestock guardian dog now will help prevent some of the rabbits from coming into the garden so much. If you only add 1 plant to your garden to attract pollinators, plant this one. I pronounce it barrage. I'm not sure if that's how you correctly say it. That's how I say it. Probably not accurate. The amount of pollinators that these flowers will bring in is remarkable. Now, this is also a medicinal herb. I will let you look into that on your own and decide for yourself. But this is an amazing plant. The flowers actually change color, which is fascinating. So early in the season, they're this brilliant blue color. When they're sufficiently pollinated, they turn pink. I like to plant these near my tomatoes. They attract specifically bumblebees, is what we usually have get on these. And bumblebees are actually what pollinate your tomatoes. Tomatoes require buzz pollination, and honeybees are not strong enough to buzz the blossoms enough to allow the plant to be fully pollinated, and bumblebees do that. So another fun fact of the day. Something in the past that I have not been very successful with is peppers. Last year was the exception to the rule. We had a better pepper crop last year than we've ever had, and this is one of the varieties we grew, this Purple Beauty bell pepper. I'm going to grow them again. They're fun to look at, but they're really fun to eat as well. These Keystone resistant giant bells, these do really well, especially for me, not being a pepper grower, but we had plenty of good bell peppers last year. And I'm going to try these as well. Red Corno de Toro pepper. This is more of a grilling or a roasting pepper. These actually did very well for me last year as well, so I'm excited to grow them again. And a garden just wouldn't be a garden without some sort of lettuce. So I have this Paris Island romaine here and this crisp head. I've never grown the crisp head before. I have grown the romaine before. It's wonderful. Excited about the crisp head. Gonna give it a shot. I have several other seed packs here behind me, but 2 that I want to share with you. The self-blanching cauliflower. I've never grown this specific variety before. Brassicas and I have a love-hate relationship. So we have some things coming down the road I can't share with you right now, but I'm really excited about. It will hopefully make growing brassicas here a lot easier. We struggle with cabbage moths really, really bad here, and it is very high maintenance to try to get brassicas to grow. The other one is this Romanesco broccoli. I have always wanted to try this. With what we have coming down the pike, I figured just as well get it now and try it. Whenever we get all these things taken care of that will make this growing easier. Can't share everything. I'll leave that to your imagination. You can figure it out. But I hope it works out that I'm able to get these in the ground. Probably not this spring, but hopefully this fall. And lastly, one thing I absolutely love about MI Gardener, as it says on their label, they are heirloom seeds. So you can save seed from all of these. We'll get into later on how to save seed for different varieties of plants and things, but they give you this little empty seed packet to encourage you to save your own seed. And it has the variety, the seed type, your name, who it was saved by, and the date, as well as any notes you would have put on there. So I just think that's a nice little gesture that they do to encourage you to save some of their seed. I forgot to mention, his seeds are $2 a pack, guys. I mean, where can you get seeds for $2 a pack? Talk about budget friendly. That's one of the reasons they're my favorite. And it's good quality, and I love his channel. I've learned so much, so I support them, and they're fairly local to me, so it makes me feel good supporting somebody local too. Tip number 8 is plant for your pollinators. So as you can see, I am standing in our 3-acre pollinator habitat. Now, while I know most people don't have 3 acres to dedicate to pollinator habitat, that's something we've chosen to invest in as we are beekeepers, and it has helped the health of our hives and the productivity of our hives significantly, having this much forage readily available for them. We do live in row crop country, unfortunately. Beautiful sometimes, but not ideal for beekeeping for a lot of reasons. I won't get into that today. That's for a different day. So we try to provide as much forage for our bees as we possibly can. Now, I know most people watching this, you don't have bees. This is irrelevant to you. Totally get it. But it's actually not totally irrelevant to you. And let me explain why. When we started keeping bees about 10 years ago, the reason we initially got them was to help our garden productivity. So one way that we have learned, not only to help our bees, but also to help our garden, not just planting this huge pollinator habitat directly adjoining where our garden area is, but also planting pollinator-friendly plants in your garden. If you have the space to plant even just a few pollinator-friendly plants in your garden itself, that's going to attract those pollinators into your garden. And you know what they're going to do while they're there? They are going to pollinate not only those flowers, but also your vegetable plants. That's going to increase your yields. And it's beautiful. So it's a win-win. Tip number 9 is planting your garden with preserving in mind. So make it worth your time. When you're buying seed, make sure that you're buying enough to make it worth your while. It's one thing to have enough to plant for fresh eating, which will save you money in the long run. But if you're really in this to help your pocketbook, plan on preserving your food when you're buying your seeds. 1 packet of bean seeds is not going to be enough to get you through the winter if you're planning to can or freeze, for instance. Same way with corn, if you're doing corn or if you're doing tomatoes. Make sure that you are buying enough seed that it's going to grow enough to get you through the winter if you're going to preserve that. Now, tomatoes, I will say, that's a caveat. Okay, so beans, yeah, 1 packet's not going to get you through. 1 packet of tomato seeds will likely last you more than 1 year. Unless you're going to plant a ½ an acre of tomatoes, 1 packet of tomato seeds is probably enough. Here on the homestead, we can and we freeze and we freeze dry our harvests. So later on this year, as I have the opportunity to do so, I will be posting little videos to help you understand how to do these things, showing you some things that I do to help my harvest be preserved and to stretch my budget just a little further. Right now is the best time to be doing the research. If you don't know how to do those things already, or you don't have the means to do that right now, it's really important that you research how to do that now before the time comes and you're scrambling, trying to figure out what you're going to do with all this food. I had to move under our shelter and sit on the side by side. It's really getting cold out here, and this freezing mist is not my friend. But tip number 10 that I have for you today is make connections within your community. Now, what I mean by that may not be your community exactly where you live, but there are big communities online that do seed swapping. This is a way to get free or cheap seeds that you may not even have access to in a catalog. Now, what I mean by that is a lot of people that save their seeds year after year will have specialty things that you may not even know exist, and it's so fun to find that out. They may also have what you're looking for as far as a specific tomato or a bean or a squash variety. I have participated in these groups before, and it's always so fun to get involved in. Most of the time, all it costs you is a self-addressed stamped envelope that you send to the individual that you're requesting seeds from, and they will send you seeds back. Sometimes somebody wants a little bit of compensation, or they may just want you to swap seeds with them. So it's a good idea, like I said earlier, if you're already saving seed, keep that in mind. You may want to be in these seed swaps and swap the seed you've saved with someone else that's saving seed. You save them money, they save you money, and it's a win-win. This final tip is going to blow your mind. It goes along with tip number 10 that I stated just a moment ago, making connections. You need to befriend an employee at your local farm store or your local big box store. Have you ever thought about what happens to all those seed packets that are left on the shelf at the end of the growing season? What do they do with them anyway? Well, let me let you in on something. They throw them in the dumpster, guys. They don't donate them. Now, I shouldn't say that exclusively. I don't know about every single store. But I can say with a surety that majority of these stores are chucking them in the trash can. Now, I have a friend of mine who just so happens to be an employee at a farm store. She came into work one day and asked her boss, "Hey, where did all the seeds go?" And he said, we had to chuck them in the trash. It's the end of the season. It was like July. And, most people are done planting seeds by, middle of June. So they had put the seeds in the dumpster. And so she asked, she said, "Well, can I go get them?" And he said, "Well, sure, but you're going to have to go get them yourself." So my dear friend went dumpster diving, not for the breadsticks, but for the seeds. My dear friend, being the lovely individual that she is, decided to share the wealth with me and sent me a copious amount of seeds in the mail. I still have some of those seed packets. While some of them are varieties I may not ever grow, it's still fun just thinking about all these seeds that she sent me. I've grown so many plants from those seeds, and they were free, guys. But I was so thankful that she was so generous. And so befriend the people that work at the store, because they can let you know when those seeds disappear. Either they can go get them for you, or they can let you know where they are, and you can go get them for yourself. And share the bounty. Share it with your friends, your family. It's an awesome tip, something I would have never thought of if I hadn't lived through it myself. While I'm sure there are so many other things that we could cover, that's all the time that I have for today. But I would like to know what your best tips and tricks are for how to grow the best garden on a budget. Leave them down below in the comments. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And until next time, keep planting that garden, and we'll be seeing ya.